Hello and welcome back to another video. It's been a little while since I posted a new video, and the reason why is because I've just been very busy with work, and then I ended up getting sick and losing my voice. In fact, it's still pretty scratchy right now, so forgive me for the bad voice quality throughout this video. Retro video game collecting is in a really great place right now. Now, given how prices have skyrocketed for many games over the last year and a half, you might be inclined to disagree with me, but hear me out. The reason I'm saying this is because there's never been a time in the past where video games, both modern and retro, have been given so much attention. Everywhere you go, you see something retro game related, whether it's licensed merchandise or games themselves. Don't believe me? Go to Walmart. You'll find t-shirts and other clothing with retro game licensing. Head on over to the electronics department and you'll see tons of retro-inspired devices, from one-up mini arcade cabinets to all sorts of retro-style consoles. Then head on over to the toy department and just try to count how many Pokemon and Mario plush dolls there are on the shelves. Another area of retro gaming that has exploded in recent years is video game soundtracks. What was once something only common in Japan has become one of the new, growing markets here in North America. It's surprising that this never caught on outside of Japan, especially after CDs starting becoming very popular. In fact, many disc-based consoles like the Sega CD or Sega Saturn utilize CD audio tracks, and you could listen to them through your CD player. I first learned about video game CD soundtracks around 1994 when I got my copy of Final Fantasy III on Super Nintendo. On the back of the cool MOG poster was an order form for merchandise. I saw this soundtrack collection, and having loved the in-game musical selections, really wanted this. Unfortunately, I was only about 13 at the time, and my parents believed that all mail-order products were scams, and I never ended up ordering it. Luckily for me, when sites like eBay started getting popular, I ordered the original sound version from Japan and have listened to it on and off from time to time ever since. Most of my collection from the 90s and 2000s were imports from Japan. Various Final Fantasy games, the Castlevania series, and even Nintendo offerings like the Legend of Zelda collection were mandatory purchases for me. Even many games starting in the PlayStation era had accompanying CD soundtracks, like the Lunar sets from Working Designs. But over the past several years, more and more have been released in the United States, especially in the vinyl record format. I've been collecting these for a few years, and I love them. My only regret is that I don't have infinite money and time to collect them all. So why would you want a video game soundtrack on vinyl? After all, many games, especially in the 8, 16, and early 32-bit eras, were created digitally with programmable sound generators. Would there be any benefit to mastering these digital signals into an older analog format? To be honest, not really. When listening to the vinyl soundtrack and the original sound coming from the console on the same audio equipment, there's not much difference in quality. Although, some consoles like the Sega CD and Sony PlayStation do have filtering in their audio chips that severely reduces the dynamic range. For example, when I play music from Echo the Dolphin on my Sega CD, if I use the direct RCA connections, the sound is fine through the CD player application. But when I play the game itself and output audio through the Genesis AV out, so I can hear both the sound effects along with the music, there's significant dynamic range reduction and even some distortion that wasn't present when listening to the audio directly. But these vinyl albums are not just about audio quality. With a vinyl album, you get unique artwork on the jacket, with some even having interior art inside the gatefold, and other bonus materials that you simply don't get with playing the music from the in-game sound tests or even playing an MP3 file. Vinyl albums come in large sleeves, some of which fold out. The size of these makes them great to put on display. Even the records themselves can be works of art to enjoy. While some albums use the industry's standard black-colored vinyl, many collector's editions feature custom-colored and patterned vinyl, and some even have artwork on them. I'm going to spend the rest of the video showing you some of my collection. Then, I'll give you some comparisons between the audio from the vinyl records in comparison to the game console itself. I hope you enjoy some of these really cool vinyl albums. First up, we have the Skies of Arcadia Eternal Soundtrack Collection. This is a really nice box set and acts as one of the main pieces to complement my Sega collection shelf. And yes, I know it was re-released on GameCube, but the Dreamcast version will always be my preferred choice. You get the 3 discs in their own slipcases in the set. Discs 1 and 2 are the game soundtrack, with colored vinyl to look like the sky itself on 180-gram vinyl. Disc 3 is an original piano recital of many of the Skies of Arcadia songs. You also get a large book with information about the game and its world, along with interviews with the composers of the soundtrack and the composers and performer of the piano selections. I really like that the overworld versions with all the regional songs mixed in were included in the soundtrack. All in all, there's over 90 minutes of music in this collection, but it'll blow by in what seems like minutes. The only thing I didn't like, and it's a minor gripe, is that the color of the records makes it very difficult to see the grooves in the vinyl, so placing the needle at the start of a specific track is actually quite a challenge. The version that I have is out of print, but recently a reissue has been made, though it looks like it's just blue-colored records and a slightly lighter weight. If you've enjoyed the music in this game, I highly recommend this collection. The next soundtrack is great for sprucing up a display cabinet, but sadly lacks in the audio quality. This is the Final Fantasy VII Remake soundtrack. Sides A and B are music from the remake, and sides C and D are tracks from the original PlayStation version. These are picture discs, and the artwork is beautiful. Unfortunately, to make picture discs, a plastic layer is laid on top of the vinyl, causing a lot of surface noise as the needle travels through the groove. Overall, I'm happy that I own this, but because of the beautiful artwork that complements my Final Fantasy collection, and not the quality of the audio itself, I would have really liked for them to have included plain black vinyl records in addition to the picture discs, so you have one set to show off and another to actually play on your turntable. Next, I have 2 Contra albums. The original Contra from NES, and Contra 3 The Alien Wars on Super Nintendo. These ones are actually 45 RPM records instead of 33 1/3 RPM records. 45s are typically higher quality, and it shows with these releases. Contra 3 doesn't have quite as much reverb that plagues many SNES titles, including this one, and it's very sharp and clear. The original Contra sounds great, but there's not that many audio tracks, which was typical for an NES game of that era. As a nice bonus, Side B of the Contra album has the complete arcade soundtrack, though I still prefer the NES versions much better. The artwork on the covers is great, and I love the vinyl color patterns, especially on Contra 3. Finally, here's the first 3 Castlevania games. The artwork on each of these is entirely original. Castlevania 3 is incredibly creepy, but I love it. My favorite is the Castlevania 2 art. I immediately recognize the artist as comic book artist Eric Powell, who publishes one of my favorite comic book series, The Goon. In the gatefold of each of these, there is an in-game map from each game drawn by the respective artists. Again, the vinyl is custom colored, and the company that produced these produced multiple colored versions, so if you get one of these, you might not have the same color records as I do. For Castlevania 2 and 3, both the Famicom and NES versions are present. Castlevania 2 was released originally on the Famicom Disk System and uses additional FM audio channels. Castlevania 3, known in Japan as Akamaja Densetsu, or Demon's Castle Legend, used a helper audio chip to add extra sound channels. Unfortunately, when Nintendo redesigned the NES for release outside of Japan, they removed the audio pass-through functionality, so the music had to be completely rewritten for the international releases of Castlevania 3. I really appreciate they included both versions, especially since the late 1990s soundtracks from Konami only featured the Famicom versions. Sadly, on the Castlevania 3 Famicom soundtrack, they used the same masters as the Japanese exclusive CDs, which had sound effects of someone spamming the whip and that pulsing noise from the orb at the end of levels on a few of the tracks. Seriously, it completely ruins the mood, but at least it's only on a few tracks for a short amount of time at the end of them. So let's take a look at the quality of these albums compared to the original games. I'm going to test out a track from the Famicom version of Castlevania 3, a track from Contra 3 The Alien Wars on Super Nintendo, and a track from Skies of Arcadia on the Dreamcast. The vinyl audio will be captured by outputting phono-level audio to my Yamaha HTR5960 audio receiver. I'm using this model because it has a built-in amplifier for phonographs. I'll also output the console audio from the AV Famicom, SNES, and Dreamcast multi-outs to the same Yamaha receiver. This way, the same amplification and processing is performed on both types of signals. The audio will send directly from the receiver to my sound card line-in so that I can record it. Let's start with Skies of Arcadia. Next, let's compare Contra 3. Finally, let's look at Castlevania 3. As you can now see, the audio quality isn't always improved over the source, but if you're looking to just listen to the soundtrack, it's a much simpler and better way to listen than trying to find a game with a sound test and get everything hooked up correctly. Many of these are available at online retailers like Amazon. Some, like the Final Fantasy soundtracks, can be purchased directly from Square Enix's website. I've seen some of these in stores like Barnes & Noble as well, so it's never been easier to find video game soundtracks. And more of these games are getting vinyl and compact disc soundtrack treatments as of late. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I encourage you to comment and share some of the soundtracks you've purchased in the past and enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.